You are a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. And I believe we need to know how to experience transformation on all three levels. And it's important that you understand how to experience that. Hi, I'm Mark DeJesus. Welcome to Transformed You. We've been talking about transformational habits. And in this episode, what I want to get into is the importance of you understanding your physiology. And many times when it comes to living the Christian life, we can emphasize the spiritual arena, right? Because you are spiritual. And we can talk about those different dynamics. We can also talk about mind renewal, the soul part of your life, the psychological, that Greek word psyche that means soul, the realms of thinking and belief systems in your life, right? But many times we ignore, dismiss, or minimize the area of physiology, of what does it mean for transformation to impact your physiology. And for so long, historically, we've often neglected it, right? I mean, I remember sitting in church services where we emphasized the power of God moving and seeking Him and the spiritual atmosphere. And then afterwards, we just go pig out at a restaurant and just totally trash our bodies on food that wasn't good for us. And we were all getting heavier and lethargic, and we didn't have the energy to do what we needed to do. And then I found myself getting in chronic sickness and illness and just not having the endurance to go the long haul to be able to live the life that God wanted me to live. So when I began to delve into understanding what transformation means, I really began from the inside out, because I do believe it starts with an inside job on what God does in your spirit, within your life, and then letting that breathe into your physical life, manifesting through your members. You know, the Bible talks about the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, and it will quicken your mortal bodies because that Spirit dwells in you, right? But we need to understand our physiology plays a part in the transformational process. And so what I want to talk to you about, whether you struggle with mood disorders, health issues, mental health issues, you just want breakthrough, or you just want a better state of mind, and you want to step into what's available for you, you need to understand your physiology. And I want to make this thesis statement to open up my discussion for this episode. Much of the Bible has certain moments, these transformative experiences that people have. And there's typically a physiological response or a physiological act that went along with the spiritual transformative experience that happened. What I mean by that is many times there was a moment where somebody knelt. They kneeled down, and that physical act of kneeling actually caused their inner man to experience an act of humility. Maybe there was a moment of praise where with hands lifted high and expression, there was a breakthrough of joy and a breakthrough of exuberance as people acted on the praises of God. You know, remember the moment of Jericho where they shouted out, they marched, they walked around. There was a physical act that went along with the spiritual breakthrough. And so what I want to help you to understand is this is all throughout the Bible. When people experience God, you'd see them fall to their faces, right? There was a physical response that then initiated inner realities of what they experienced, right? Because of the overwhelmed sense. And so many times what's inside affects the outside. But I also find that an outside step of obedience, in other words, physically engaging something, can bring, out of that obedience, can bring an inward change of atmosphere in your life. And I used to, when I first taught on transformation, it was inside out, like I said. But I'm also realizing there are some outside physical things we can engage to usher in and bring about the change. You know, there are moments where you need to shout. There's moments you need to laugh. There's moments where you need to, in the Bible, there was moments where they teared off their garments, right? Or there was great singing. They'd send the choirs out. Or there were moments where they physically erected some kind of monument that would symbolize what God was doing, right? The Bible talks about clap your hands, shout unto God. And what I think the mistake that Christians make is they say, well, that's good, but I'm not that expressive. Or they might say, oh, I'm not Pentecostal or charismatic, so that's not my thing. And I want to kind of just eliminate those factors for a moment and go, no, your body was meant to physically engage the things of the kingdom. I really believe that many times in the body of Christ, we lack those moments of just physically connecting to what we're wanting to experience. And we limit it to maybe just a moment in church and or that time where we break loose. But you need to start incorporating in your life physiological dynamics where you are engaging your body into the things of God. Now, I'll give you an example. I remember when I was teaching transformative principles at a seminar, and I kind of shocked the audience because many of them struggle with depression, or they struggle with relationship issues or discouragement or whatever. And we got into the physiology understanding. I began to teach them the importance of getting things embedded into their physiology. And I had a wide variety and spectrum of Christian faith. Some people, I'm not even sure if they were even Christians. They liked my teachings and they wanted to know more, into the spectrum of all kinds of different streams of Christian faith, right? And at the end of it, I said, all right, we're going to engage this. Let's stand to our feet. And I want you to take a strong posture, right? And I want you to begin to feel the confidence. And what I want you to do is I want you to start declaring out loud what you believe God is going to do in your life from this day forward. And I could see them kind of like, okay, God, I believe you're going to do great things. You know, you can see the sheepishness. And what it revealed is their physiological timidity revealed there was an inward, because oftentimes what we manifest physically shows what's going on inside, right? So if I was to tell you, what does depression look like? Well, there's sadness, your voice lowers, your shoulders shrug, kind of lethargic, tired, just don't want to do anything, right? Let's talk about anxious. What's anxious feel? Maybe you can't sit still, you're looking around, you can't focus, right? There's all kinds of things that can line up with that. Well, many times we need to align our physiology with where we're wanting to feel and go. So in the seminar, I could tell everyone's getting uncomfortable and I'm just pushing them and I'm pushing them. No, I want you now to start praising God. And I could tell people in the room, like, that's not how I was raised. That's not what I do. And I'm like, this is not about your theological makeup or what you're comfortable with. I've got to break you out of your comfort zone. And then I remember there were a couple of people in that room that I knew they struggled with depression. And some of them actually stood on top of their chairs and just lifted their hands and said, God, I want breakthrough. I want a new life. And I'm like, there it is. There it is. There it is. Because what they were doing is they were physically engaging the freedom. And this is what it does. It creates a moment in time where we experience in the cells of our being who God is, and it's something we know we can always return to because it's banked in our memory. I want to keep stirring up those moments where I connected to God's presence. Or I'll give you another example. Sometimes I'll pray over people who struggle with anxiety, and within 3 to 5 minutes, we can see a marked difference in their anxiety levels. And what I say to them is I say, this physiological piece that you feel right now, this is an imprint in your body. And I want you to know you can return back to this, but you're going to need to know how to cultivate a life that conditions you for a better state of mind. Right? So going back to that seminar, I watched people in this tension, and I realized we as church, we as believers, we're used to going to church, stand up, sit down, go home. We've actually not learned how to engage our physiology. So when I was a pastor, there were times where I would look at things that were going on in our congregation, and I would do things to just interrupt their pattern. Right? Where I would say, okay, I want 10 people, you come up, and we're gonna thank God right now. And I want you to each give thanks. And they'd all get nervous, right? Oh, I gotta speak, what am I gonna say? But it were powerful moments. There was another time where we kicked into an upbeat song, and I had everybody just march around the room. Right? And I said, I want you, while you're marching around, to just begin to declare who God is in your life. And I could tell some of them had never done this in their whole life. And within 15 minutes, the whole room was filled with this anticipation and this excitement, right? And you could say, well, that's not my background. I want you to just kind of let that go for a second and realize, when was the last time you got excited? When was the last time you took a deep breath and you said, God, you're going to do great things in our lives, right? I remember when my wife first met me and I was battling through a lot of anxiety and just panic attack stuff. And I remember her speaking into my identity. And she says, when you get in those states, you get kind of slumped over. You get like, it shows, you wear it. It's like you're wearing it like a cloak. It's this pity that comes over you. She goes, I see you as a man of God with shoulders back, standing tall, looking at people more in the eye and declaring your confidence. And that gave me a picture. And it's a physiological thing that I return to quite often. And sometimes I'll actually look in the mirror and talk to myself. If I'm having a really difficult day, I'll take a physiological posture and I'll go, Mark, you man of God. And I'll start talking to myself and I engage the physiology of that confidence. Now in the moment, I don't feel it, but I'm physiologically engaging it till my inner man comes into alignment and into agreement. I've even worked with my son, Max, he's on the autism spectrum, so certain things teaching him are very, very challenging. But one thing that I've taught him is how to snap himself out of it and engage his physiology when he's in a certain pattern that he can't seem to break out of. I say to him, Max, do your power pose. Right? And there's this thing I taught him where all he does is he takes his hands, makes a fist, brings them up in the air. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you won't see me. He takes his hands, brings them up in the air, and he just goes like this, takes a deep breath and goes. It's just that one act that just kind of, it expresses masculinity, but it just breathes in a quick boost of confidence, right? So when he's struggling, he's like, I don't know what to do, and his brain's kind of spinning. I go, do your man of God pose. And he goes, and I have him stand in front of the mirror. And this is the one sentence I've taught him that's been very powerful for his life. Now, Max struggles in a lot of talking, relating kind of areas. And we've talked about that journey. But month after month after month, I just kept using this cue. I put him in front of the mirror and I say this, what do you say in front of the mirror? And he looks in the mirror and says, I'm a man of God. Right? And he does that movement. And it triggers him to enter into a new level of confidence. Now, I use that for my son, but I got to be honest, I got to use that for myself. I got to engage the physiology of what is available for me in my life. You see it all throughout the Bible. And so I want you to know it's available for you. So next time you read through the Bible, read through David's life or read through the apostles, there's all these physical movements they talk about. Even the book of Hebrews talks about lift up those hands that lay low, strengthen those knees, right? Jesus said, lift your heads up, right? I had to learn to carry the confidence of God of stop shrugging my head down and looking down. Get your head up, buddy. Look up because the fields are white unto harvest. The opportunity is there. So I have a physiological act I do every day. I wake up in the morning, I step outside, I let my feet hit the ground, I take in a deep breath, I thank God for the day, I breathe it in, I stand tall, and let the confidence of God fill me. So the physical act engages the internal reality. So I want to give you about 5 things that I think could help you when it comes to physiology as I close out this series that's going to help you to experience transformation on another level, to embed the habit. And I want your homework assignment, your takeaway to be, what's the one physiological act I can engage in every day that helps me out of everything I talk about? The first thing I want to talk about when it comes to physiology is the power of taking action. I'm a believer that any knowledge you get, if you don't act on it, it's useless. We live in a culture that is high on the level of knowledge. It's like, man, we know everything we need to do, but we're very low in taking action. So high knowledge, low action equals deadness, no manifestation, no fruit, right? We need to start taking our level of what we know and meeting action with it. And what does that mean? That means everything that I learn, I want to, in the moment, take action on it. In fact, whenever I talk somewhere, do a talk or teach or preach, I always bring the people to decision. And in that moment of decision, I say, what's the act you need to decide on now? In this atmosphere, make a a decision to take action, because the knowledge without action, it's just dead. James said faith without works is dead. So that means that if you understand something and don't act on it, if you look in the mirror, like he says, and you see something that needs to be addressed and you do nothing about it, it creates a passive coma existence in your life. So that every time that subject is brought up, you don't act on it. The more you don't act, it creates a physical association inside of you that gets used to hearing something and doing nothing. And that's too much of what the church is living like. We hear something, we don't do anything with it. We hear something, we don't do anything with it. We wonder why God isn't moving, but we've tolerated a life in existence that doesn't take action. So I'm a believer. If I go to a seminar, a conference, if I'm sitting with someone and getting advice, I'm always taking notes and I'm always highlighting what's the action step today I need to take this understanding and move it into revelation, move it into experience, move it into something I possess in my life, because it's something that I live out. Okay. The second thing is, when it comes to physiology, is I want to utilize my physiology to match the internal state I'm looking for. So I say to people, what do you want to experience in your life? Majority of people say this: I want more peace. Many other people say, I want more joy. Or other people say, I want more clarity. Or people say, I want to be happy. Those are just terms of engaging the internal reality of who God is and what He can give us in relationship with us. Now, the reality is that if you're a Christian, the fruit of the Spirit is inside of you, because the Holy Spirit is within you, right? But we need to learn how to physiologically engage it, because we need to get it conditioned. People say, I want joy. I say, well, what does joy look like? And if you look at their life, they've never really engaged joy. And maybe they needed alcohol to do it, right? They needed that little extra help. And it's like, no, God's given us the ability to engage the fruit of the Spirit, but we've got to learn how to act in it, right? It's like we've got to learn to actually physically demonstrate it. So what does joy look like? There's probably laughter. You need to learn how to shout. You may even, like I've had to learn, you need to learn how to smile. Right? Because I have my default setting face is pretty serious. I got a pretty serious looking face. Sometimes I gotta look downright angry, right? And I gotta tell my face to engage what I really feel inside or what I want to feel and connect to inside, right? When people say, well, I want more peace in your life. Well, how do you engage your physiology in just breathing in the peace of God? You're go, go, go all the time, do, and you don't know how to stop and be at peace. You need to train your physiology in peace. People say, I want clarity, but your schedule's chaotic. You need to engage your physiology in one thing at a time. I want to train myself to have focus, God, to be laser focused on what you have for me today, right? There's so many other areas, so many different things that I could talk about, but what I want to do is I want to use my physiology to help me to focus into what I want. Maybe it's confidence. Maybe when you talk to people, like, I want to be more confident. Well, practice just looking at them in the eye and maintaining eye contact and, not looking down. Or maybe it's just simply, if you struggle with chronic depression, and I know I've experienced this, I've had to learn to engage my physiology and what it means to not come into agreement with depression. I've had to learn to shout to God, to dance before Him. Folks, I was not a dancer. Trust me. But I had to learn how to dance before Him. Even my awkwardness, to dance while feeling the oppression. The Bible talks about put on the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Isaiah 61 says, right? That's not just a nice cliche. It's saying, put on the garment. What does it mean? It means you need to wear it. Wear that praise. Act in it. I had to learn to have these little mini dance sessions in my bedroom. Just me and God, right? To learn to dance while I was feeling so oppressed. And I found amazing breakthrough moments where the oppression left. I would just kick on the music. I've talked about in other teachings where I would cue my alarm and I would have a certain song ready to play and it would be blasted on full blast. So when it was time to wake up, man, I was cued to just be excited about the day. And that was not my default setting, right? So what you want to do is you want to get the thought pattern deeply immersed into your physiology. Whatever thought pattern you want to gain of, you have to make it the goal. I want to get it into my physiology. I want my cells, the cells of my body, to be embedded with it. So if you struggle with anxiety, that stuff gets down into your cells and there's a response in your nervous system that's automatic so many times, right? So there's a new conditioning of confidence and peace. You got to engage your physiology with it. So maybe you want to do that right now as you're watching this or as you're listening. The third thing I want to encourage you to do is every day you want to find an opportunity to just get moving. Now, when it comes to exercise, don't be overwhelmed, because some of you just need to 20 minutes. Take a walk a day, just 20 minutes. And a part of that 20 minutes in the walk, go a little faster. Walk like you're late to a meeting. Okay? Walk like you're late to a meeting. Just get your heart rate up and get yourself used to movement. And I find that if I just get moving, it stimulates my mind. There's openness and clarity in my thinking. And I use that time to pray. I use that time to talk to God, to declare over my life. I use that moment to make some better decisions for my life. Because typically if we are just not moving, we're just in this, sedated kind of state, or you're in a cubicle all day, or you're sitting at a desk all day, that's a recipe for lethargy and even spiritual passivity. So every day you got to find ways to just get active. What is the one act that I can take today that physiologically engages me, to get my senses alert, to awaken myself, right? So first is I want to learn how to take action. 2, I want my physiology to match what I want my internal reality to be. 3 is get moving, okay? Number 4 is sometimes I have to use my physiology to interrupt a bad state of mind or a bad funk that I'm in. If you're stuck, the biggest, quickest way you can get out of being stuck is physiologically engaging a different posture. So the classic one that I use is when I'm having a rough day, sometimes I just start getting sluggish. I just want to sit. I just want to watch TV. I just don't want to do anything. And I find myself getting into that lethargy, right? Now, sometimes I may just need a nap. It's just true, right? We just get tired, need a nap. But you know the difference. You know when just like this just coma coming over you, right? And what I would do is I'd go, nope. I would stand up, get out of my chair, take a deep breath, and I'd go outside and I'd just start moving. I would just do something. Maybe I would do some kind of lunge or lift up something heavy, just kind of engage my physiology, and it would just wake me up. Because usually what happens is our body goes into patterns. So if you struggle with, depressive, discouraging kind of things, your body gets conditioned. And I find I got to snap myself out of it. Another thing I used to do, and still do to this day, because I've had battles with obsessive kind of thinking, where I get into a trail and I find I can't snap myself out of it. And one of the things I would do is I would just break out into a song. I would just pick a joyful song and I would just start singing it randomly, right? And what it would do is it would jar my mind out of this ditch I was in and move me into a new one, right? Sometimes we say, well, I'll just stop thinking that way. And we go, well, how? Sometimes you got to just interrupt the flow and break the pattern so you create a new one, right? Okay, so number 1, I want to take action. 2, I want my physiology to match my internal state. 3, I want to get moving. 4, I want to use my physiology to interrupt those funks that I get in. And lastly, I want to learn how to care for my body. Now, this is something I've done entire teachings on, I've done entire trainings, I've helped people on, but there's just a couple things I want to really implore you when it comes to your physiology. Number 1, in caring for your body, is you need to make sure you are having proper sleep. The list is endless of people that just aren't sleeping well anymore. There's a promise in the Word that God gives His beloved sweet sleep. It's your recovery time. So if I'm working with somebody who struggles with mood, weight issues, or maybe illness, I actually often start with helping them to restore their sleep. Because if you're not sleeping, cortisol's jacked up, your metabolism's jacked up, your nervous system's messed up, your thinking's cloudy, and you're trying to talk to God and you're trying to get through the day, and you're not sleeping, that's the first thing that needs to be reestablished. Okay? Then, secondly, is getting activity, because sometimes you need movement, but you also need rest, and sometimes there's the wisdom to know in the moment. What do I need right now? Do I truly need a nap? Do I need to just sit and be still? Do I need to get some good sleep tonight? Or do I need to like get up and take action? Because both go hand in hand. You need that movement, you need that rest, right? But last thing I want to close with this, because I'll talk about this other times. You need to activate proper nutrition for your physiology. Now, when I first started my transformative experience and God really brought a revival into my life, I thought, well, if my spirituality is legit and in the right place and healed, then it doesn't really matter what I eat. And then I learned over the years, that's not really true. Food is changing at a rapid pace. What we're eating is actually not even food anymore. A lot of times we're eating food-like substances. And listen, even an optimum body can process foods with stuff in it and get through it. But I want to tell you something. God spoke to me about really loving myself the way that He loved me. And I realized, what sense does it make in constantly fueling myself with garbage and then expecting great things to manifest over the long period of time? And I found great joy in turning around my nutrition. And this is what I find. Energy changes dramatically. Brain focus enhanced tremendously. And weight loss is so much easier. So many of you are on weight loss fads and you need to stop. You're in all these diet bandwagons, right? And a lot of that you need to stop because you actually need to get healthy. When you get healthy, weight loss starts to happen as a byproduct, okay? Now you may need to do a detox, maybe a 30-day detox. Maybe you need to get some assistance. There's lots of recommended pathways I've used that have been great for my journey and have really helped me. But man, I saw the difference, physiological health, energy, and alertness when I changed my nutritional habits. And I find if I want to experience transformation, I don't want to be foggy throughout the day. I don't want to be dipping in blood sugar dips. And that's the crisis we're living in, is we have a blood sugar insulin resistant culture that masses of people are borderline type 2 diabetic, if not type 2 diabetic, right? This is a major problem. So you got to make a decision for that. What do I want to do to care for this temple? And I know we'll get a new body someday as believers, right? It's a temporal place, but I want to care for it. Why would I want to treat it like garbage? And you'll need to make a decision. And my decision is that I want to engage in food that is fuel for my body. I don't want to engage in food that's going to overwork my body. Why would I want my body to have to work hard digesting something it doesn't need to when I could use that energy for something else? I want to be healthy for my kids. I want to be healthy for the people that I help. I want to be alert and all senses on, right? So I'm just so passionate. Physiology is a part of this. And this is just a synopsis, but I pray it's been an encouragement to your life. Take all the habits that I've broken down in these sessions and start taking action on them. And out of this one, what's the one physiological habit you can begin engaging today? Make a decision on it. Send me your feedback. I'd love to hear the decisions you're making. mark@markdejesus.com is my email address. Please consider donating to this broadcast. Many of you have been so blessed. You've written to me, but you haven't donated just yet. Would you consider doing that? We are looking to produce more videos and more resources and more materials to help you in your journey. Consider partnering with us. I'm building up a tribe of people that, as a partner, you get access to great materials, teachings, and resources that can help you experience healing, freedom, and transformation in a dynamic way in your life and in your journey. But anyways, it's been a blessing to pour into your life. I pray this has been a help to you and an encouragement. Go take action on it today. God's with you. He wants to heal you. He wants to free you. He wants you to experience the life you were made for. And I know you're ready for it. So go get him. God bless you. We'll see you in the next season and in future episodes.